Hello there, I'm Isha and welcome to today's talk. Today we're going to talk to a noted film director, writer, and actor, Niyi Oni, who has directed multiple feature-length films and has acted in major TV and film productions. His most recent trailer, 415, was voted Best Trailer at the American International Film Festival in 2010. His current project is called Like You Mean It, and is the story of arranged marriage in Indian culture, and further focuses on the generation gap that exists in modern Indian families. The two main characters are Nasir and Ria, who are forced to consider the idea of arranged marriage despite their Western ideals. To tell us more about this romantic drama, we have with us Niyi Oni, who's the writer and director of Like You Mean It. Niyi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So Niyi, you're a professional actor, a writer, and director. How did you get started in the filmmaking business, and what was your first filmmaking venture?
Well, I got started in the business in general in being in front of the camera. It started when I was very young, and that was theater. Mm-hmm. My background starts in theater, so I had done theater throughout high school. I did theater in college or whatnot, and then it just transcended into television and film. So I've always had a love for the entertainment world. I've always had a love for telling stories or just taking yourself out of your reality and putting yourself in someone else's reality, mm-hmm. Being your character or whatnot. And those kind of, they've always fascinated me. To segue into the other side, which is on the other side of the camera, another passion of mine came out, which was writing. I had always wrote when I was younger. It was more so poetry. I was writing poetry in middle school. Mm-hmm. It was usually romantic poetry. It's mm-hmm. usually to a girl that I just thought was cute, and I didn't have enough confidence to go speak to her, so I'd rather just write it down and hand it to her. But that was my writing background. That's where it started. So as I continued to perform and on different sets and locations, playing different characters and everything, well, that was expressing myself in front of the camera. Another means of expression was through writing, mm-hmm. and I kind of put the two together. So I found myself, I remember just sitting one day and I had a story in my head. And so I just started writing it. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I got into it and got enthralled in it, that same passion for acting mm-hmm. came out on the writing side. So I started 5 pages, turned into 10 pages, turned into 30 pages, turned into 100 pages. And next thing you knew, I had a screenplay, without any real formal training, but I knew that I could tell a story effectively. And I knew how to pull emotion. Mm-hmm. I was very good at that. Right. And even with performing, my preference is drama. Mm-hmm. I've always been a dramatic actor.
Okay, so speaking of your new venture, you just worked on this new movie trailer called Like You Mean It, and it's based on the age-old concept of arranged marriage in Indian culture.
Hi, my name is Niyi Oni. I'm the writer and director for the romantic drama Like You Mean It. Of course, the mother doesn't feel the same way. And then Nasir has his friend and coworker Anthony, who counsels him, offers him advice.
So what inspired you to create a story on arranged marriage and also, I guess, a generational gap that exists in modern Indian families, even here in the U.S.?
What got me going on this story actually goes back to when I was in college. Even though it's not my heritage, the story's personal to me because my college roommate was Indian. And on top of that, he was in the same predicament. He had pressures from family, right. He had pressures from friends, and so I would hear all of his frustrations. I'd hear every single one of them, whether, what should I do? Am I doing the right thing? Am I betraying my culture? Should I be true to myself? Something that was started so long ago, does it really apply today? All those different things I would be the ear to, mm-hmm. and I really can offer advice because I wasn't coming from that heritage, but sometimes some people just need an ear. Right. So at the same time, while kind of, I don't know if you want to say consoling him or whatnot, it's also putting this story and all this new information in my head, mm-hmm. and I found myself very curious about this culture right. and about this practice. It made me want to do some research. So I asked people I knew, my friend's mom, mm-hmm. Went ahead and asked her, just what's your opinion? How do you feel about this now? Do you think it's being upheld by the younger generation? Do you think that the younger generation is doing it wrong? I just did some research, and then I asked random strangers, just mm-hmm. random people, That's how it all started.
So why is it called Like You Mean It? What's the significance behind the title?
Like You Mean It. Well, it's a phrase that is used within the story that it actually happens at a very pinnacle time. If you do think about that, though, if you think about that phrase, like you mean it, and you start to break that down, it makes one kind of wonder, you're doing something like you mean it. So you're doing something as if it should be, as if this is the correct thing to do, or as if, this is just the natural order of things, like you mean it. Not so much that you do mean it.
Right.
So I found that one slogan, that one catchphrase actually encompasses the entire story.
Can you tell us in one word what the movie's about or what the feel of the movie is?
One word?
Yeah. Or, okay, you can
a
use
sentence?
one.
I could have a sentence?
Sure, you can have a sentence.
My sentence, because I thought about this. I actually thought about this, and it's something that I do after I write a story. I think the industry standard sometimes, the higher-ups will ask you this, but I always ask myself this when I'm done writing. What is your story in a sentence? So, not that I was practicing for this, but I actually already had it, and my story in one sentence is, it's a generational tradition at an inconvenient time, and that's how I sum up the entire story.
Okay.
It's something that's been continued for years, just can't be practiced right now.
Right.
And so there's a subtle reality that comes to that, because we're obviously in a different time and different emotion and different age and all that kind of stuff. So that's how I sum that sentence up.
So we're talking about arranged marriage, and it's something that most Indian men and women, even here in the US, in their 20s or 30s, kind of have to deal with, where it comes a certain time where their families or the community start pressuring them, with proposals, marriage proposals.
It's true.
And just like the two main characters in your trailer, Ria and Nasir, they're also, most Indian men and women are very career driven. They want to focus on their ambitions, and they want to find their husband and wife on their own. So what are your thoughts about arranged marriage and the fact that it is still such a dominating aspect of our culture, of our community, even in the Western society?
I don't have an opinion either way as far as positive or negative. It's more so just as an observer.
Right.
I think that I definitely respect the fact that it's ongoing. I think it's ongoing for a reason. It has to obviously be beneficial in one scope to the society as a whole. I know a lot of times people look at it as an individual basis. Is this right for me? Is this right for her? For him? As opposed to a people,
right,
or a region. Then you know what? I found that there are similar things in other cultures, just not maybe categorized and boxed that exact way.
So what's been the reaction of Indians and non-Indians to your trailer after seeing it?
I've had mixed responses. No one angry or anything like that,
Right.
but just some people, some of my friends saying that I actually agree with it. I agree with it for this reason, that reason. After getting the responses from each person, one of the things I realized the most is that their response seems like it's geared to their personality.
Okay.
That's what I found.
So there's been so many movies made on arranged marriage by, in India and as well as here.
Sure.
So how does this one stand out from the rest of them in terms of the storyline or certain characteristics? How does it stand out?
Well, first and foremost, I wrote it, so it's gonna be. But aside that, it stands out just because it's a little bit more. I find it to be, and I've checked if you can call it my competition. I've looked at past works that closely resemble this. That's just natural. You're gonna do that in anything you do, whether it's entertainment or business, or you want to see what the next person's doing. So I've checked on it, and what I have found what's different is there's a strong influx from both sides as far as our characters happen to be very westernized. The leads happen to be westernized, while their parents are still practicing strong beliefs from the East or whatnot. So in ours, I found that they're both represented equally.
Okay.
Plenty of strength, not just one side is barking a lot and the other one's relatively quiet. So you really have kind of like a little tug of war there. Another thing I've noticed is the majority of those movies you're talking about, at least that I've seen, and like you said, there are plenty, so I'm sure there's plenty I haven't seen, but the majority of the ones that I've seen have always kind of had the same pressure on a girl. Pressure on a girl, pressure on a girl,
Right,
pressure on a
absolutely.
girl. This girl has to do this, this girl has to do that, and doesn't always acknowledge the side that the guy may not always want to.
Filmmaking is obviously a complex process. It's not just based on a beautiful story. So what's the next step for Like You Mean It in terms of the financing, the marketing, casting? Where do you take it next?
Yeah, with because it's such a like I said, it's personal to me. You know, it is a personal story, and I want everything depicted accurately. Casting is ongoing to an extent. We've already started casting. We've been casting everywhere, both coasts, from LA all the way to New York. You know, and we have our lead characters per se. Took a long time. You know, I saw over 100 actors, over 100 actors before I could get my male lead in 1, 2, 3, 4 different states.
Okay.
So you know, that's not too much a burden. What a real burden is the logistics, because we're going to be filming because of the locations in the story, we're going to be filming in Washington, D.C., we'll be filming in Maryland, we'll be filming in New York, and so coordinating all that's really the hardest part of it. I find that to be the most difficult. Financing is usually the toughest part of filmmaking. Anyone will tell you that, whether it's whether it's big budget, or whether it's ultra low budget, or whether it's no budget. Financing, it always comes down to financing.
Right.
So there's various avenues that we're pursuing. We have a public one. We're utilizing a new artistic platform called Kickstarter.
Right.
And Kickstarter is a form for any type of art, even tech. So I mean, it's for painters, singers, innovations, technology innovations. It's just something to help. Kickstarter, the platform, is rarely will you get all the financing you need, but it just like it mentions, it'll get you going.
Right.
So that's one of our funding platforms, and if you just go on that website and you just look at things, there are projects left and right that are funded up to $100,000,
Right.
$20,000, $5,000, $8,000. So the spectrum just varies. It's more so reaching an audience who likes what you're doing. So on our Kickstarter page, you know, we're asking from anything from $1 to this amount, with different tiers. We're really wanting to include the person. Like, hey, you know, we want to keep you in the loop of production. Depending on what you're giving, we want to already make sure you're going to get a movie and a T-shirt. If you'd love to come down and film with us one day on set, come down and film with us on set.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of things just to say thank you. You're not just another one.
Right. So finally, what would you like to say to our Image and Asian viewers about Like You Mean It?
Well, first I want to say thanks. Thank you again for having me, and thank you for staying tuned. Like You Mean It, it really is a touching story. I can look back on some of the scenes that I can see, you know, in my head, and even I get a little just a little coughed up, just a little bit, because I know how powerful it is. But it's a wonderful story that I'm hoping I'm able to share. And please, you know, if you are curious at all, interested at all, then I would ask that you visit Kickstarter.com, and just under search, you can search Like You Mean It. You'll see it come up there. You'll see the funding platform come up. It's very easy to contribute, and it's very secure. It's very safe.
Great. So thank you so much for joining us today, and
Thank you
wish
for
you
having me.
all the best with this project and your future projects.
Thank you so much for having me.